At the end of the last video, I explained how I would build my fiddle yard, but thanks to the YouTube community, I've been given a much better idea. So in the last video, I looked at both using short radius points and medium radius points for my 6-lane fiddle yards. If I used the short radius points, there would only be 1 3/4 inches between the track centres, whereas we're using medium radius, there would be 2 inches, and therefore it'd be very difficult to get your fingers to get your rolling stock on and off in this fiddle yard, whereas this one it would be a little bit easier. But someone on Facebook, who I am so ashamed to say I've lost that Facebook link, so I can't compliment them, came up with a much better idea. It's probably worth mentioning before you go any further that I have a dislike of 3-way points. And that's no disrespect to Pico, they make some lovely track, but on a club layout that I'm involved with, we have nothing but problems with one particular 3-way point. So I'm going to choose not to use these things, as I'd hate to get myself in trouble, whereas I find the whole fiddle yard assembly won't work because I've chosen to use one of these. So what's this cunning plan that someone has furnished me with? So here is what was suggested is the answer. So as you can see, we've got a right, so everything's medium radius, so we've got a right hand, and followed by that is a left hand. Coming out of the point, there's another left hand, and then this one goes straight down. There's one more point there and there. This one's a right and that one's a left. So you go from 2 tracks to 4 tracks to 6 tracks, and the point work is over in next to no time. And if you remember earlier, the last point ended down here because it went similar to this side, where you just have to point after point after point after point. So your point sections are all over very, very quickly. And you've still got one line to run straight through if you wish to have a kind of a faster line straight through the middle. Obviously some of these points are old and battered, and I wouldn't dream of using these in the fiddle yard for real. And just to give you a kind of a sense of scale, this board is actually 24 inches across, which is exactly the distance of my fiddle yard. So what I am probably going to do, unless someone else comes out with an even better idea, is to do exactly this, to use just left and right hand medium radius electro frog Pico code 100 points. That's a mouthful, isn't it? On the whole fiddle yard, and obviously this will be mirrored at the other end. So there we go. The only change is I have to do the approach to the fiddle yard. Instead of the tracks coming in parallel, obviously now there's some distance between them. Okay, there is one other point which this guy mentioned, who I'm still ashamed to say I don't know who he was, and that is, he mentioned that there is no way of me getting trains from one side of my layout to another. And you might say, well, why would you need to do that? But if I've got a DMU running around on the up line, I want it on the down line, then clearly I would need it to get across. There is a small crossing over by the station side, but it also seems sensible at this early stage to put in 2 points here to go from the up to the down, and also another 2 points at the other end to go from the down to the up. So that would be kind of like that. And that will see the points across. And I think this is an absolute cracking idea, unless of course you know better. So here we are with the other fiddle yard in place, or the other half of the fiddle yard, and it's just for kind of illustration purposes really, because these are the small radius points and I will use medium radius. And you can see the distances involved here, where the up and the down lines will need to come in off the viaduct area and into the fiddle yards themselves. And I can fit it in across the 24 inches of the space that I've got I've allowed for the fiddle yard. And there is a reasonable gap, I think it's 2-inch centres right across. So how many points are there? Well, there's 5, 10, so there's 12 points now at this end, and there'll obviously be another 12 points at the other end, which is no small investment, clearly. Someone else also mentioned that perhaps I could bring off a point up here as another stowage area for locos. I kind of accept what they say, but I have the TMD side, and I'll try to leave all my locos in there, is the idea. Of course, then you ask yourself, well, how many lanes do I actually need on my fiddle yard? Well, that depends, of course, on how many trains you own. And of course, when I say trains, I mean trains, I don't mean locos. So I think I have a total of 14 trains. So I might have a train of coal trucks, a train, well, I've got 3 passenger sets, I've got a train of tankers, I've got a mixed freight with vans, etc. And of course, when you have trains, the last thing you want to do is start taking them on and off your layout for a change. It is easier to lay them up in a fiddle yard. But of course, there are 3 things that I think dictate the size of your fiddle yard, and that is the amount of trains you own, the size available, and of course your budget, which kind of all makes sense. But this fiddle yards of this size is quite an expense, but if this costs X amount of hundreds of pounds to rig, well, that might only be 2 sound locos. So it's a point worth thinking about, perhaps. But I like this design. Again, I will thank the guy that I can't find the link for on Facebook for his idea. And I think it's a substantial idea, if of course you choose to avoid Pico's 3 waypoints, which I kind of do. There we go. One other point I think I'd like to make is something I watched on the TV the other day on the Hornby, one of the 2 Hornby programs. And that was a term that someone came out with called SABLE, which stands for Stuff Acquired Beyond Life Expectancy. Now, I've touched on this in the past, in as much as we as railway modelers, especially people towards their autumn years, let's say, with bigger budgets, we tend to buy stuff that we never use. And I've been guilty of it in the past. I go out and think, oh, that's a nice looking loco, I'll get one of those. And of course it sits in a box. I even found a sound chip not too long ago that I had for 18 months and hadn't bothered installing. And it's absolutely shameful that you can spend 110 quid on a sound chip and never get around to using it. And I think I hold my head in shame, but I'm sure there are people watching this that will know what I'm talking about. So if I can give any advice, it's not to spend cash willy-nilly on stuff that we like rather than need. I think we are all too gullible really into the latest release and all that kind of stuff, where perhaps we should be a little more frugal with what we buy. So I think it's a good term for us all to remember, SABLE, Stuff Acquired Beyond Life Expectancy. Food for thought, perhaps. Well, that just about wraps this video up. Tomorrow I'll be at the Alexandra Palace at the show, so hopefully that'll be worth a trip up there. And after that I'm working away for a week, and then after that I come back and start in earnest on the viaduct board and getting the scenics cracked out. The channel is growing quite considerably now, and I really do my utmost to answer everybody's questions and to leave an answer to people's comments. Unfortunately, it's not that easy now because the comments are coming in by the 100. Popularity, what pressure. But my patrons, I will always answer your questions and your queries within 24 hours, so rest assured your investment in my time it will be worth it. I will do my utmost to answer your questions and get to the root of the problems. There we are. So in the meantime, there is a subscribe button just here, and if you'd like to become a patron, then please click the link and see what it's all about. And there should be a video here, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks a lot, take care, bye bye.